Hey guys, I'm finally showing you my greenhouse. This is not going to be a Pinterest perfect pretty stage tour. This is literally just how my greenhouse looks as a functioning greenhouse. So it's not going to be all clean and nice, but it is way better than what you're looking at on the screen now, which is where it started from. So when we moved in, next to the garage, or next to what is now the guest house, there was this long lean-to with rotting wood and this disgusting green slime growing all over the plastic sheets that was stapled up onto it. The inside was just full of rubbish, including a big orange sofa, as you can see on the left, old tires, scrap metal, pieces of wood, and you see that box in the middle? That was an actual functioning toilet and basin. Don't ask me why. So when we had the extension put on to the guest house for the kitchen and bathroom, we removed half of the framing for this lean-to and pulled off all the plastic, and this is how it looked for a while before I got to working on it and making it into a greenhouse. You can see that there's a kind of a shelf that was quite deep and then just junk everywhere. And here is how it looks now. We replaced the rotten timbers, we moved some of the framing poles, and then we clad it in this sheer plastic sheeting. It's got 2 doors and it sits on the corner of the guest house by my raised beds. There's a tiny little flower bed next to the door, and in there I've got poppies and pansies, a hellebore, an iris, and a foxglove. I've got some old boots sitting next to the door. They aren't looking great now, but last year I had pretty flowers coming out of them. I'll probably plant them up with something better when I get a chance. Inside we built shelves out of pallets, so I've got 3 levels of shelves for my plants on 2 of the walls. I've got my tools hung up in the corner, and then I've got a bench and a shelf underneath. This has been such a functional space for me to sow seeds, prick them out, pot on plants, pot on cuttings, and grow my seedlings before planting them out into the garden. So these are just a few overviews, and then I will talk you through what's where and how I've stored everything and how it works. So I'm going to show you around kind of vlog style and talk you through some of the things that are in here. I'm going to have to be quick because it is so hot in here. Normally by this time of year I will have both doors open and a bit of a cross breeze going on because it just gets so hot. So let's get started and I'll show you what's what and what's where. As I mentioned, I have 2 doors. So this is the first door, and as you can see in the plastic sheeting there, we put in 1 clear panel which kind of acts like a window. But the door itself was recycled. It used to be in the garage. The area that's now the guest house kind of led through into the garage, and this door was there. But of course we blocked that up when we made the guest house. So we repurposed the door and fitted it in here. And on the back of the door you can see a nifty little thing that I've made. This is a piece of material that is used to line the shower. It's like a metal with a plastic coating, and I got my friend Cami to cut out the wording and the blocks out of vinyl, and I stuck them on. So these blocks are exactly to scale and they represent all of my raised beds. And you can see on it I can use dry erase marker to write what is in which bed, because I tend to plant things or sow things, especially sow seeds, and forget what I've sowed where and what still needs filling. So this way I can kind of just write out what is in each bed, and I can just erase it and write something different when I change it. I did learn the hard way not to go off the edge of the vinyl and onto the white because it leaves marks. But that is kind of a new system that I've been trying, and it's working so far. To the left of the door you can see this lei that my friend gave me. She went to Hawaii and brought this back, and it is made from seeds and it has flowers painted onto it. So I thought that was perfect for out in here, and it should be fairly durable in the elements. Moving on from the door, this is the potting bench. So this actual bench used to be twice as deep, and it did exist in the original lean-to. So we just made it shallower so that it's easy to reach to the back of it, and added a shelf underneath so that I can put all sorts of goodies there, which I'll show you in a minute. Above my potting bench I have some bunting, because of course you have to have bunting everywhere, and a tool rail, and I have more tools stored over there. So I'll just take you on a tour now of what is stored where. Starting on the left, I have a little sign that my friend Karen sent me all the way from England. It says homegrown tastes better. On the windowsill there you can see a flower made out of shells. Jessie gave that to me, and again I thought it was nice to have out here because it's flowers and it's durable, it can withstand the elements. And then next to it I have a little trug that Noah made for me, and that's handy for toting out things like seed packets and my clippers and odds and ends when I'm working in the garden. In the next section, as I mentioned, I have some bunting at the top. I made this out of little chalkboard wooden bunting triangles that I bought off AliExpress, and I just strung them on some twine. Beneath it is a rail. This used to be the old curtain rails in the house. I just stuck one up here with screws so that I could hang all of my tools and goodies. So from the left I have a pair of clippers. They are just stuck onto the wall with a nail. I could just kind of hook them on and off like this. Hanging up I have a basket that I thrifted. That's just handy to grab if I do an impromptu little harvest. I have a thermometer which is reading 30 degrees, 31 degrees. It is super hot in here. I have a little bucket from the dollar store, and in there I store tiny little hair clips that I use to clip up things like peas until they get a grip on the support. I have a blade that I use for cutting open compost bags. I have a couple of scissors for cutting open seed packets, and then I have 2 curtain rings that I've hung on the S-hooks, and on them I clip all of my garden clips for clipping bigger plants onto supports. I've just clipped them all onto the ring and it works. And then I have an empty S-hook for probably a tool that's somewhere. Beneath it I have on the left a sliced log that looks exactly like the continent of Africa, so of course I had to keep that. And then I have some clippers next to it. I have another bucket from the dollar store, and in there I keep my dibber, my knife, markers and pencils. Next to that is a container full of landscaping staples, and then I have a little plant pot that just has random things like pegs and a sprinkler and odds and ends. To the right on the rail I have a sieve that is to sift soil over seeds. I have my long rose pruning gloves that was a gift from a friend. She gave me those and I absolutely love them. They're floral, they're from Garden Girl, and they protect your arms as well as your hands when you're pruning prickly things. I have a spare pair of gloves on the right. I have a sharpener for my tools. I have a weeding tool, a trowel and a mini hoe / rake. Beneath it I have another hose head. I have my bulb planter which I use for planting out all of my seedlings. I have some more garden plant clips. I have a big bulldog clip that I use to sometimes hang my gloves up with. I have some rooting hormone, and then on the right I have some gel that you put onto the raw edge of a pruned branch to prevent disease. This is the next section, and I have a frame that I made with some galvanized wire grid in it, and you can clip up things. I was initially clipping up little seed packets that I wanted to access information on, or plant labels, but it's actually kind of hard to reach because of the depth of the potting bench, so I'm probably going to be replacing that. Below it on the shelf I've got some multi-purpose surface cleaner, which is methylated spirits. This one is scented in vanilla, so that's for spraying on your clipper blades when you're pruning so that you don't spread disease. I have measuring cups underneath which Grant uses for weed killer. I have a weed killer gel that you can just take the lid off, and it's got like a brush dispenser, and you can brush it onto the leaves of a weed and just kill that weed rather than spraying the area. Next to it you can see a bottle of weed killer solution. We don't use that near our vegetables, but we do use it in other places where it's needed. Some more measuring cups, and then I have some citrus fertilizer and some snail bait. To the right, that is where we store our pruning saw, and I have some bottles of magnesium supplements. I talked about this in a vlog. Those are excess supplements that I'm just going to use in the garden to boost my plants. And then we have a tool rack on the right where you can kind of see our telescopic loppers hanging out. So this is a tool rack that I got from Bunnings, and on there I've hung our rake, shovels, I've got like a hoeing tool, fork, spade. The spade is actually elsewhere, Grant's busy using it, and there's also something else missing. And then below there is a gap there, and we can just stand things like the brooms and odds and ends in the corner if we need to. On my actual bench I've got seeds that I need to prick out. So these are just empty meat trays that I've bought chicken or mince in that I wash out, I poke holes in the bottom, and that's what I sow my seeds in, and then I prick them out into pots when they get big enough. I have a gnome which was a gift to me from the boys. I need to find him a spot in the garden. And then on the bench I have this tray, it's just a plastic tray from IKEA, and that is what I work on because the gaps in the wood are actually quite big, so I don't want things falling down when I'm busy pricking out and potting on, so I work on this tray. So my gloves are ready for me there, and I also have some dwarf stock seeds that I need to harvest. And then on the other end of the bench I have a galvanized tray, I think that was from the warehouse, and I have my harvest basket, so I'll go and show you what's up with that. I just need to move my tripod. My harvest basket is from the warehouse many years ago. I used to store it in the kitchen, but I always found that I would be out in the garden not intending to go and harvest things, but then I would see things that need harvesting and then wish I had my basket with me. So I keep it in the greenhouse now. This tray is from the warehouse, and in it I have another plastic meat tray of plant markers. So every year when the season's finished I clean and wash and kind of remove the names off all of my plant markers and have them ready for the next year. But during the season I'll prick things out, and then I'll plant them out and pull off the marker, and then I'll prick something else out, so I just use it both sides. So these are the ones that are kind of on the go. And then I have a clipboard with a pad of paper, and I jot down what I do because I keep a diary of what I do in the garden each day that I work in the garden, so that I can see year to year when I was doing things and what I was doing and how much I harvested and things like that. That glass had a cutting in, I need to take that to the kitchen. On the left hanging there you can see some bungee cords. That's really handy if I've got a pile of cuttings and things in my wagon. I can just clip the cords over it and nothing falls off while I'm moving them from A to B. So in the shelf underneath my potting bench I have some baskets. Sometimes I grow seedlings in little disposable cups or things, and I can just put them in the basket and grab a bunch of them to take and plant out rather than taking them individually. I also have some garden bags. You can grow things in them, you can move things in them, so those are handy. This container holds my seed raising mix. I've finished sowing seeds for the season, so I need to tip out the remainder of the seed raising mix and clean that out ready for next year. Above it is a lunchbox containing clean and ready plant markers. Next to that I have a plastic tray, and in there I've got packets of things. So I've got natural blood and bone, I've got cornmeal, which actually prevents seeds from sprouting. So once you've planted out seedlings you can sprinkle that around, and then it stops any weed seeds from germinating around them. I've got some all-purpose garden fertilizer, and I have my cactus and succulent raising mix. That galvanized tub I got from the op shop or thrift store, and that holds my potting mix. And behind it I just have trays full of pots and seedling punnets. There are my seedling punnets and trays and pots and things. On the ground I've got two big buckets with handles, and I use those when I'm weeding, and I just throw all the weeds in there to go into the big compost bin later. So they're just handy to carry around, and they hold a fair amount. On the shelf I've got another bin, and that is for refuse that can't be composted, so plastic compost packets and seed trays and things like that. And behind there usually stands the weed killer sprayer. You may have noticed on the floor I've got some long pieces of rebar. These are to stake my tomatoes, so they need to be really long because they need to go all the way through the depth of the bed and then into the ground, and need to be really sturdy because we get high winds, so I still need to do that. Moving around from the potting bench I have some plant shelves. These were just made from pallets, and they fasten to the uprights that kind of frame out the greenhouse, so they're quite sturdy. And I have cuttings on the bottom and then trays with pots and punnets of seedlings ready to be planted out. A lot of them need to actually go into the garden. I'm late doing that. I have lined the shelves with this roofing felt. You can see a roll of it there. We just had it left over, and it just prevents the shelves from rotting, because I found last year from the constant watering the shelves would sit wet underneath the pots and then they would get fungus and mold, and that is what actually destroys the wood and rots it. So I just used what we had. It's not a permanent solution, but it has helped with the water to just have it run off the shelves instead of sit in the wood. When I run out of this, it was just excess that we had, then I will probably get sheets of plastic to use. This door came on the little unit that we bought, which became the kitchen bathroom extension on the guest house. So it was a self-contained unit that we then built onto the guest house, and we no longer needed this door, so we repurposed it for my greenhouse. Next to it is some more plant shelves. They've got seedlings that need to be planted out. I have a watering system. So this is a hose system that I can either have off. I can have the water go to the left, which is for the hose pipe I use in the greenhouse. You can see it lying on the floor there. Or I can have it go right, which goes to this hose, which goes outside to the sprinkler if we want to water our plants that way. On the bottom shelf I have a watering can, some extra hose pipes, some buckets, and some glass light fittings which act as cloches when I need them. I actually never use them, so I might just clear them out. In that box I've got net curtains, so I can net certain plants against butterflies and insects. And then at the back I've got some chicken feed bags. I was going to use it for something, I'm not going to use it anymore, so I need to just clear that out. At the back you can kind of see my dibber that I made. I kind of need to make one with longer pokey bits. I'll show you that in a minute. And then our nifty wagon, which I absolutely love. I talked about it in a vlog a few years ago when I got it, so I will link that over here. Here's a little bit of a better view of my dibber. Basically it's a board and it's got little wooden dowels and handles on the back, so you can press it onto the soil and it marks where to sow your seeds if you're sowing things like beetroots or Swedes or something like that. I do need to make one, as I said, with longer pokey bits, because these aren't long enough to really work very well. So this door opens and then it stays fastened with a hook onto the bench there, and this is the view out of the door. For this door I've made a door stop out of some rocks that I've stuck together with epoxy, and that just stands in front of that when I need to prop the door open. And this is the view out of this door. Okay, let's talk about the floor. This floor is not ideal because it is uneven. I have already tripped over a log and fallen, but it was free. I had a lot of wood offcuts and it was free to make, and it does the job. It's not going to last forever. It's going to last longer than my log path because it's not outdoors in the rain, although they do still get wet with runoff from watering my seedlings on the shelves. But anyway, it'll do for now. I just laid the log slices in like a puzzle formation, and then I put little stones in between them, and then I put in beach sand. It's not fully sanded all the way through, and not all of them have stones in the gaps, but it does the job and it works for now. So that is a tour of my greenhouse. I know it's been long awaited. I hope you enjoyed it and that it was worth the wait. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one.